I debated whether or not I should actually make the title of this video Racist Old Man Fails Me on My Driving Test, but we'll get into that. Oh my god, hey everyone! So today I'm going to be doing my very first storytime video. It's a long one, it's a traumatic one, so grab a snack, grab some tea, and buckle up. So since we've all had Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo on repeat, just a side note, but if you haven't listened to Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo, please click off this video and go listen to it on repeat. Thank me later. I could relate to all the feelings in her song, except for the driver's license part. So I thought today I would tell you guys the long-awaited story of why I don't have my driver's license. So the story starts somewhere in the middle of high school when everyone was turning 16 and getting their licenses. I didn't know anything about cars. People would be like, oh, is that like a Honda Buick Accord 2005 in the parking lot? And I'd be like, oh, like the red one? Yeah, I know that one. I still know next to nothing about cars, but my opinions on driving changed drastically when I realized the amount of independence and freedom you actually could get from having your license and driving and going wherever you want to. So we have this establishment, if you will, called icbc, which is basically just like the Canadian version of the DMV, where you can go to get your L license, your N license, and your full license. So the way it works in BC is as soon as you turn 16, you can go for your L test, which is a knowledge test. Once you pass, you're able to drive with a passenger who's 25 plus with their full license. After you drive for a full year and practice your driving, you can then go for your N test, which is basically a road test. And once you pass, you're able to drive with one non-family member, and you're free to drive wherever you want, however you want. Everyone in my high school was super excited to get their licenses. As soon as everyone turned 16, they were getting their L's, and by grade 11 and 12, they were already driving on the roads. But I was a little bit late to that because I didn't really care for driving until I did, and I got my license, or my L license. First try, it was super easy, just basic knowledge and common sense. Once I got my learner's license, I started practicing almost immediately with a private instructor as well as family members. I had my learner's license and I had practiced for a full year, and I was ready to go for my N test so I could actually drive freely and go wherever I want. But unfortunately, BC is actually known as one of the hardest places to actually pass and get your license. I don't know why that is, but they have a very, very low success rate for actually passing people on their N or road tests. So my very first road test, I remember being so nervous. I got no sleep the night before. I remember being so anxious that I put on What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong on repeat. I got like 2 hours of sleep, I think. And my plan was, you know, it's my first road test. I don't know if I'm gonna pass. I'm just gonna wing it. Maybe if I do pass, I thought I could drive well enough. Let's just go for it. First try. It's okay if I don't pass. Still hopeful because I was actually thought I was pretty good at driving. And so I'm in the waiting room and the examiner comes out. She's a young woman. She has like black sunglasses. She looked a little bit bitchy, but like it seemed like, you know, maybe this is it. Maybe I got it. I mean, maybe we'll get along. Who knows? And so we go on the test, and it went what I thought to be well until we came towards the very end. And this is something very important to note. At the very end of a road test, they will either say, pull in and park anywhere, or they'll say, I want you to back park. And what that means is if they tell you to park anywhere, that means that you failed because they don't really care where you fucking park, like they just want you out of here. But if they want you to back park, that means they want to test your back parking skills, and then that's like the cherry on top of your passing road test, or so I thought it would be. So the road test comes to an end, and she says to me, oh, just park anywhere. So I'm obviously like, well, I just failed my first test. It's whatever. It's okay. And then we pull in, and she starts to explain to me as to why I failed. The first thing she says is, oh, your driving is good. I don't know. Oh, then why did you fail me then if my driving is good? And then she goes on to say, there was a point in the test where she told me to pull over and park, and she said that I didn't turn the wheel around, which you have to do as a safety precaution in case your car rolls down the hill. Even though the ground was like completely level, I didn't turn the wheel in case there was any sort of slope, so she failed me because of that. And also she did say that I crossed over a white painted line, which is not even illegal. It's literally just like looked down upon, but whatever, it's fine. She can fail me for that. But I remember being so triggered afterwards because she literally complimented my driving, said I was good, yet failed me for 2 literal super stupid reasons. So road test number 2, it was about 6 months later. I had practiced a lot more, and I actually decided to do it in a different city because the city that I originally took it in was actually known for failing people for like literally dumb reasons like that, and they have a very, very low success rate. So I tried to do it in a different city that had, you know, better reviews. And so my plan was that I had my driving test in the morning, and then I was actually doing a closing shift at work right after, and then my manager also at the time, she was planning on selling me her car for $1,000 because she was about to go backpacking and she was leaving our job. Later on she actually was convicted for drug smuggling, but that is a different story for a different time. But yeah, the plan was really simple: go for my test in the morning, do a cute little closing shift, go get a new car, go drive home, and live happily ever after, or so I thought. So the examiner comes out, and he is a sort of like a bigger, stockier kind of guy. He looks a little bit aggressive. I'm a little bit worried, but I think it'll go somewhat well. So we start the test, and I'm literally just about to turn onto the first street, and I'm waiting for a safe gap. I'm a little bit anxious and nervous because like I'm on a road test, and like I had just failed my first one, so obviously like I'm a little bit scared, a little hesitant, want to be super careful about what I'm doing. And I'm waiting for a safe gap for there to be no cars so I can just go, take my turn, relax. And he gets frustrated because it's been like 30 seconds and he's like, just go! And so I floor it and I go, and we start the test. Aside from him yelling at me to start the test, I thought it went pretty well, or what I thought to be pretty well, until he took me to an overpass. I've never driven on an overpass before. I was so scared. Everyone was going like 60 or 80, and I had to go 50, which was the speed limit. So like my eyes glued to the needle, making sure I don't go any little bit above the speed limit. And everyone else is just speeding, zooming by, and he's looking at me and like, I'm just trying to go, I'm trying to go. We were actually thankfully stuck in traffic for most of the test, which is really, really helpful because you're not really driving when you're stuck in traffic. You just have to like sit there and not move. So that was really, really helpful. But the test goes what I thought, again, to be well, until we come to the very end. And he tells me, we're pulling into the parking lot, and he says, I want you to back park. At this point, I'm elated, I'm so happy. I'm like, we passed, we did it. I knew this was the right place to go. I knew we got it. And so I start to do my little back parking maneuver. So happy that I passed, and I'm doing my little back parking, I'm doing my back parking. I'm backing up into the spot that he tells me to, until I hear, and my heart dropped. I was shook. I hit the curb, and I was holding onto the wheel for dear life, and all I could do was slowly, slowly look over at him to see his reaction, and he's looking at me like, you'd better hope there's no damages, and he just gives me the dirtiest look as if I just done the worst thing ever. Which is really funny because a lot of people have told me when they took their test that they hit the curb, they hit like multiple curbs during their test, and the examiner still passed them. So I was like, okay, like I just hit the curb a little bit, I'll be fine. I was not fine. He looks over to me and he says, well, you failed. My heart drops. I'm so surprised. I'm like, are you serious? Like inside, I'm not saying that. Like deep inside, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I literally just hit the curb. Like I barely even hit it. And he asked me when my last test was, and he said basically that the reason why I failed was because of my hesitance and unconfidence driving, which honestly I can understand that as a valid reason to fail someone, because you don't want people who are nervous driving on the road, hitting people, not knowing what they're doing, not even moving. So looking back on it in hindsight, I can respect it, but it was really, really frustrating because he did tell me to back park, which is like, I thought it meant that I passed, but obviously it didn't. So I proceeded to go into work, had my shift to do. My manager looks at me as I come in. She's super excited, hoping that I passed, hoping that she can get her 1K and sell her car to me. So I look at her and I'm like, I failed. And she's like, oh no. And then she looks away and she's like, oh, who am I gonna sell my car to now? So I'm already broken, I'm already sad. I failed my second test, and she's just making it even better for me. So I go into the washroom, I get changed into my uniform, and I cry for the 10 minutes before my shift started. So my third road test. Does it get better? I'm already so broken at this point. I'm so sad. I have trauma. The trauma has settled into me. I hate icbc. I hate examiners. I hate driving. But I'm still really, really determined to get my license. I debated whether or not I should actually make the title of this video Racist Old Man Fails Me on My Driving Test, but we'll get into that. It's my third road test. I got no sleep the night before. I was so anxious, so nervous. It was like all or nothing for me. It was like, if I don't pass this time, I'm never gonna go again. But I was still determined. I had 0 hours of sleep, and I decided to go for my third road test. And this time I was doing it back in the first place where I did my test. And so I'm in the waiting room, and the examiner comes out, and it's this old man with his dumbass little hat and his dumbass little clipboard, and I have very little hope that he's going to feel any sort of remorse for me and hope that I might pass this test. So the third test starts, and I'm thinking, you know what, third time's the charm, maybe we're gonna get it. And it goes, again, what I thought to be well. Obviously it wasn't. Until we come to a neighborhood area. And something they do on the test is they'll tell you to pull over and park, and then they'll ask you to identify the hazards in the area. So he did just that and asked me what were the hazards. He said, name 3 hazards in this area. So we're in a neighborhood area, so I'm thinking, 1, there could be people running out onto the streets because it's a neighborhood. 2, there could be oncoming traffic from behind me that I can't see. And 3, I think I just made something up. I don't really remember what I said, but whatever it was that I did say to him, it triggered a nerve in his brain, and he went ballistic. The entire duration of the test, he was relatively calm until I named the hazards, and it triggered something in his brain. I don't know. He just went off on me for literally no reason. And he goes, I don't see any people around. I don't see any oncoming traffic from behind. And he just starts going off and yelling. And then he goes, I want to know what the hazards are right here, right now, in British Columbia, Canada, on planet Earth. And I'm like, so scared for my life at this point. He just yelled at me for genuinely no reason. And I'm getting high-key racist vibes from him because you can just tell. Just another side note, the area actually where I took this test, there's a lot of racism towards immigrants in that area, so he really did fit the check for that. The way he was yelling at me, it was like he assumed that I had, like, just come from the country and I had no idea what was going on, and that I only knew the hazards in, like, Mother India, where, like, I don't know what is going the driving and I don't know what is the happening, and it was so rude, and he berated me in my own car, and it gets worse. He goes on to say, and this is how you pull your e-brake. Because you have to pull your emergency brake whenever you pull over and park. So he's like, this is how you do it. And he grabs my emergency brake, and he yanks it so hard that it's straight vertical. And I'm like, I'm taken aback. My soul just left my body. I'm scared out of my life. I'm looking at the e-brake. I'm looking at him. I don't know what's going on. I'm panicking. I'm so scared. And I go like full like, I'm sorry, like I don't know the hazards. Please don't hurt me. Like literally, I was so afraid for my life. And then he's like, well, keep driving. So I tried to pull my emergency brake down, and I'm like pulling on it for like a good 30 seconds. I can't pull it down. I literally have to use 2 hands to pry this straight vertical emergency brake down, and it finally comes down, and then we go on for the rest of the test. And we're only hoping it gets better from here, right? We go on for the rest of the test. There's extreme tension between the two of us because of what had just happened. But he's directing me, and he says, first street, turn right. I'm already so shook and so scared. I want this test to be over so badly. And I could not see, for whatever reason, I could not see the first street where I was supposed to turn right. And instead I saw a driveway, which I thought was a street, after this traumatic event of him yelling at me. So I see this driveway, and I think it's a street, so I start turning into it. And halfway before I fully turn into this random person's driveway, I'm like, oh shit, like this is not the street that he's talking about. This is a driveway. So I start to pull back into the lane and keep going, but there is traffic behind me. And so he gets so angry, he's like, stop! And he grabs my wheel out of my hand. And if you guys don't know, whenever the examiner has to intervene or grab the wheel out of your hand, that means you automatically fail. So as soon as he put his hand on the wheel, my soul just straight up left my body. I was like, well, there's no point in me even driving for the rest of this test. Like, I already failed. There's no point. Like, I mean, I understand why he did pull my wheel, but, like, it was just so triggering. It's like, oh, well, that's it. That's like, I'm over. It's done. And so he pulls he pulls my wheel back, and he's like, wait for a safe gap before you go. So I'm like, we wait like a good 30 seconds. There's a safe gap, I go, and I basically drive soullessly for the rest of the road test. This was by far the worst test out of them all. I honestly drove really, really poorly. It wasn't good. But we start to get towards the end of the road test. We get to the end of the test, and obviously he's not going to tell me to back park anywhere, so he tells me to just park anywhere. And he starts to go over why I failed. He tells me all the reasons. And remember something that he said so clearly to me. It was, poor observation skills lead to poor decisions. Which is so triggering to me because I made sure, and this is something so important on the test, is you have to be like constantly shoulder checking all the mirrors at all times. And I was doing all those things. I was observing. I really was. But maybe my decision-making skills, you know, maybe they weren't there. That's fine. We're at the very end. We're just waiting in my car, and I have the tiniest little shred of hope in me that, you know what, I failed for a third time. Third time was definitely not the charm. Definitely not. But I'm like, you know what, if I want to go for my license again, I definitely want to improve my driving. I can be honest, I'm not the best driver. I should not be on the road. Definitely not. But I had this tiniest little bit of hope that maybe I could ask him how I could improve my driving, and that maybe I could get it in the future. So I say, is there anything you think I could do to improve my driving before he leaves my car? He looks down at his clipboard. He looks at me, looks down at the clipboard again, and he laughs in my face and says, no, not really, and leaves my car. My soul, my heart, my spirit, every single thing in my body is just gone. I feel empty. I feel dead inside. I'm like, well, fuck this guy. Fuck this racist piece of shit. I cannot believe he just did this to me in my own car. All I really remember afterwards is I was driving home after the test, and I remember just speeding through the streets, and I was like, oh, fuck this. Fuck ICBC. Fuck this piece of shit guy, and I'm never going for my road test again. I hate this. I hate driving. I'm never doing it again. And I was just speeding, and I was so angry. I'm like, I'm just gonna go home now. And so I did go home. I went into the shower, cried for the whole duration of the shower, and I haven't gone back since. I do have trauma with ICBC. I'm scared to go for my road test again, and I've, for now at least, given up. So basically, in conclusion, I failed 3 of my road tests. I have trauma from ICBC. Unfortunately, I will not be driving through the suburbs or driving alone past anyone's street since I don't have my license, but you know, I'm pretty okay with staying at home, streaming, playing video games all day, and taking public transit when I need to. I wish I could say, like, oh, like, I'm vegan and, like, environmentally friendly, like, that's why I take public transit, but it's like, no, bitch, I just don't have my license. If you guys have any driving stories, driving trauma, please sound off in the comments below so I don't feel as alone. And let me know if you guys like this storytime video. It's my very first time doing it. So make sure to comment, make sure to like, let me know that you guys enjoyed it. I'm definitely excited to make more. And thank you all for watching. I love you all so much. You see, I'm trying. I know you know that I like you, but that's not enough. So if you